Rated E for everyone.
That's what was gonna happen, right? That's what we've been saying the whole time, right?
You
From the
knew,
very beginning.
too,
It's
like-
like you shake the 8-ball and look at it and go, oh, Europe's gonna leak the Halo 3
It's
stuff.
like I told Microsoft it's going to leak, and I talked to Bungie, and I'm like, it's going to leak. And
we knew,
Bungie,
too. They were both like,
Yeah,
I
it's
hope
gonna-
because we all had like the same concern.
yeah, and Bungie said to me, they're like, yeah, we expect it to leak because everything that's gone to Europe has leaked, and it's like, well, so at least today, like I was kind of stunned, but I wasn't just outrightly like overly pissed off because I just like, well, yeah, I expected this. I knew this was going to happen.
And they didn't get every single asset, luckily.
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
guys
We
got.
have like some stuff that no one has, and then we know some stuff that no one has. Like
Right.
we can. At least what's cool is when people get the issue, like, oh wow, I didn't know that about the Needler, about
Right,
the sword.
even the people
and-
who see like shitty scans, which probably aren't too many people, hopefully, yeah. And then you got some work. You still got some work
yeah,
to do.
I mean, when everything leaked this morning, there was an email that was like, okay, just go with everything. So like when the original leak happened, like the first thing we were told was like, prepare everything. And it's like, God, I have like 30,000 words to write, taking it like basically everything that we saw and everything that you guys cover and sort of looking at it from the nerdiest perspective possible. Like
Crazy
like
Halo
if
guy
you look
perspective.
at the the Swedish thing on the 20 seconds of single player footage, it's like 3 sentences.
Yeah.
Like
and we
our
actually
first
in our
paragraph's
magazine we don't talk
15.
about it that.
Hey, I don't wanna go to work today. Wanna stay home and play all my video games on the One Up Show. You know you'll be a star on the One Up Show. You already are. One up, 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 one up on the One Up Show. One up, 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 one up on the One Up Show.
Luckily, we were there. We got to play it. Like, seeing screens completely does not convey. Even the people around here who saw it, and Bungie kind of laid the groundwork. They said, look, it's a pre-alpha. The textures are not final. The lighting is just like it's not there at all.
The animations aren't totally done.
They would show us the level, and it would be like, oh, okay, yeah, this definitely looks like Halo. This looks like super like nice, crisp, high-res Halo. And then you started playing it, and there was like, you just didn't even care. Like
Yeah,
even looking at the
totally.
screens now, like I'm not even like people who are just like worried about the graphics and stuff like that. Which I mean, that's just I'm not even. It's neither here nor there for me right now. But it's like. All the stuff with the
gameplay.
with the
like-
weapons and the guns and the levels, like, God, the levels that we were playing. Even the little things like the shield doors. There were one way you could pass through them, but any bullets or explosions or anything would be stopped by these little like energy walls. Like such a simple concept, but the fights that happened around those doors were fucking amazing.
Yeah, just ducking in and out.
Yeah.
Like trying to stick up Bungie guys. He's like poking in and out when he first start playing, and he's like laughing.
Yeah.
Then when he gets stuck, and we're laughing.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like in and out of the rabbit hole. You like grab a shotgun, kind of lure somebody down in, and then wait right on the other side. They're throwing grenades, they're shooting at you. You just like wait, grenade explodes, pop right out, bam, shotgun, pop right back in. Like 6 guys could be right there, and they still can't kill you because of that wall.
I mean, and everyone has that like inevitable first time where like you run and follow someone through and throw a grenade and like bounces back and blows you up.
right, yeah.
And
that
it's
happened
such
a
a
few times.
simple feature too. When they explain it, I'm like, Oh, well, it's no big deal. It's just a force field, you know. But when you're actually playing it, it's awesome because there's sometimes you and your opponent, you're looking at each other from like 20 feet away, and you're just standing there. You can't shoot each other. You're just looking at each other, like wondering, all right, what's the next move? And we were playing oddball, like free for oddball. So I take it. And there's like 2 or 3 Spartans chasing me, right? Just all shooting at each other, shooting at me. I'm just like running like up and like carrying this oddball. I run through the shield door, and in the confusion and this chaos, I like do a 180 and turn around and run right back through the door. And I see all these other Spartans going through, and they're still fighting each other. And they reach the other side of the door, and they're all shooting at each other. And I kind of like make it out of there, just kind of quietly slip by. It's kind of like in the old maps where you're just going from teleporter, turn around, right through back to the same teleporter. But now it's a little bit less annoying, but it's still fun. And you're just laughing because I just kept doing this. I just kept circling around. And just held on to the oddball forever.
We just got done playing about 2 hours of Red Steel multiplayer. We had it was 4 maps and 3 modes. It was deathmatch, team deathmatch, and killer.
The idea behind killer is that one player gets a phone, or potentially all players get a phone call, and then you lift up the Wii remote, you push the 2 button, and you can hear a message on your remote. So it may say, you know, you're the killer, you have to kill this guy, or it may say, you know, you have to find a mystery opponent, in which case, when you get closer to him, you'll feel the remote vibrating and making like a sonar sound. So, depending on which, you know, message it gives you, that kind of determines what happens in the game.
It reminded me of GoldenEye a bit with the body armor, you know, the secondary meter that you had there. That was kind of cool.
I was definitely getting a GoldenEye vibe too, but maybe that's because that was the last time I played 4-player split screen for a first-person shooter. I'm a little worried about the aiming. It's still kind of, sometimes it would jump around for me. And like when you're zoomed in with the sniper rifle, that's not what you want to have happen.
So in single player, you have this big screen, right? You have like the entire screen to yourself. And so when you're waving it around, it's a little jumpy. It's not that big of a deal. But when you have a box and divide that space by 4, and you have this little box where you're trying to aim to, it gets to be a lot more troublesome.
I don't know, it didn't seem that different to me. Like single player and multiplayer seem pretty similar. I mean, obviously the single player has certain things that multiplayer doesn't, like mainly the zoom. So like in single player, you push the A and then you push your arm out and you can zoom your screen in to get a better angle, and then you have much more control of where you're shooting. That's not in multiplayer.
But multiplayer does have that new kind of sword move.
Yes.
It's sort of like
Halo inspired.
Yeah, sort of like the energy sword from Halo, but not quite as super overpowered.
Right.
And everyone's got it.
Yeah, everyone's got it at all times. It's like the little sword icon appears when you're close enough to a guy that you can use it, and then you just dash after him. But I mean, you're not invincible. Just like Halo, he can hit you before you get to him.
Yeah, it's kind of cool in that you can be running around with a default pistol going up against someone with like a great weapon, like a shotgun or something. Yeah. And if you time the sword thing right, I mean, you're still going to be able to kill them.
Yeah, if they don't have
their
their
sort of like
armor
a great equalizer.
Yeah, you just do one of those, and then you can do like a pistol headshot, and they're gone.
It's reminiscent of the Halo 1 pistol a lot, where if you hold down A and you give yourself a steadier aim, and you just let go a couple headshots, it'll drop the person in like a few hits, you know? And so it's kind of cool. It reminded me of that a bit.
I'd say just like coming into it, if you expect this is gonna be, you know, only split screen, and you know like what we're talking about here, and you know that, and you still think you're gonna like it, you probably will. You know, it's there's not really that. You know, it's not like some big secret that, you know, it's a first-person shooter and you play it like that and it works this way. It's just, it kind of works like you would expect it to.
So haters, why do you hate good games so much?
Well, all right. So we're talking about Yoshi's Island 2 here.
It's actually called Yoshi's Island DS. They changed
that's
that.
because it's not worthy of the two.
Maybe that was the first
No,
problem.
it
The first
is-
indication that this might not be as good as the
It
first.
means it's Yoshi's Island with dual screens, because it's really pretty much exactly the same game.
No, it's not.
With some babies.
Yoshi's Story, bad Yoshi game. Yoshi's, what was it, gravitational game? What was it even called?
Topsy-turvy.
Topsy-turvy, bad game. Yoshi's Island,
Bad game by the people who made Yoshi's Island DS.
that's true. This is by R2 and the same people, but Yoshi's Island DS is a good game, and it's a real sequel. It takes the ideas of Yoshi's Island and expands on them. There's new gameplay features. It's not the same levels. It's a real sequel.
You still collect enemies, turn them into eggs, use the eggs to shoot into objects and make things happen. And it's this typical side-scroller progression, except with the dual screens. And I think that brings the first big problem, which I think Jeremy hates more than anybody here.
I like the idea of having twice the action, of
Right.
having a vertical element to the game. That makes it really different from any other platform I've ever played, but it doesn't work out because, the DS screens, they're,
Yeah,
they've got the gap.
let's do it.
So you have game world, and then 100 pixels of invisible, who knows what,
Because
in
the
between.
problem is, if that space did not actually exist, if Yoshi warped from the top of the bottom screen to the bottom of the top screen with no actual movement in between, it would seem really strange. It would feel like he's warping
it
upward.
It
totally
wouldn't feel
disagree with
strange.
that.
The problem it would have is that when you're chucking eggs up on the top screen, there would be like this weird discontinuity, and you wouldn't be able to aim properly.
the arc of your.
I get
But
that.
I think you'd get used to it real quick. And Sonic Rush, it did two screens thing. And it warped across, and I had no problem with that. Those hidden stars that you shoot for bonuses, they get trapped in that screen. It was almost like they're perfectly placed.
that's the only time-
many
you might
times.
as well not be able to control your jumps or something.
Yeah.
Jesus.
The only time it bothered me is when something I needed, like a hidden star or something I'm trying to shoot,
Or an enemy
actually
who's coming down a vine at you.
actually ends up in that spot. But simply jumping or looking up, you can see what is up there. I mean,
Except on the auto-scrolling stages, you can't control how you look up and down on the auto-scrolling stages.
I agree.
Before we keep hating,
that
let's-
does cause some headaches.
One of the good things, though,
Right.
that multiple characters. That's a good idea. Like
Yeah,
you have multiple babies, like Mario, Peach, Donkey Kong, and Bowser.
Wario,
And
Wario.
And Wario. Each of them has a unique ability.
Yeah, and they actually are different, and you do have to
Yeah.
switch between them to do different parts of the level. But one problem is it kind of holds your hand, and it's really obvious who you're supposed to be most of the time. Later in the game, you do change more.
It
But
seems like most of the time it doesn't matter who you are. Like if you see a lot of vines, you have to be DK because he's the only one who can swing on vines.
Yeah, if there's an updraft, better
It's
use
gonna be
Peach.
But like on the in-between, you have no idea who to use, and like oftentimes I'd hit a point where I need somebody, and like, oh, I didn't change because I had no indication who I should be using.
the baby changing tactic, although it's not quite as strategic as you might expect, because it does hold your hand and it's clear who you're supposed to be. It is cool, and it does make the game feel different. It does innovate and evolve the formula.
I found myself just using Mario most of the time because
Well, he's the fastest.
He's the
I
fastest.
would
He's also
rather
just
use
kind of a solid all-arounder. Like, it's really annoying that Donkey Kong's eggs explode on impact with anything instead of bouncing around. Because, like, part of Yoshi's Island is using those
Ricocheting eggs.
mathematical skills
Yeah.
to do pool tricks and stuff.
The central gameplay this is very similar to Yoshi's Island. Is you're trying to collect all these
it
things.
plays
Maybe a
Same,
little,
yes.
maybe a little too similar in places. I think it's a World 3 where things start to get a little different, and there's like a Donkey
Yeah.
Kong Jr. homage that I really liked.
That was cool.
That was cool, except
Except you
when you're
couldn't
going
see
up
the
vines,
claptrap guys, yeah.
You can't see the snap jaws coming down. Yeah, there's some
Well.
parts I like the Shy Guy village where you go and there's the little spear guys and you're
That was
like
cute. Yeah.
fighting through their village, or the castle where you fight the Shy Guy on stilts and there's all these Shy Guys just living their lives
Yeah, that's
in the
a
background.
really cool level. And just
Yeah,
like
there's lots of cute
the
little
enemy
things
set
like
is
that.
really awesome too. They introduced a lot of enemies from Mario that weren't in before, and yeah, it's a lot of homages to the old games. It's probably the hardest platformer I've played in years.
Well, here's the thing. It's not hard in a good way. It's hard because
Oh, it is. Like
most
those late levels,
it's
those late
more-
levels are very difficult on purpose.
It's more balanced than some games I've played this year.
sometimes you just throw so many enemies. You have to land on like a 2-block platform. There's already like this bouncy penguin knocking you off. And then there's like a gigantic purple ball bouncing
bouncy
down.
balls that knock
at
you off the
perfect time to knock
platforms.
you off.
See, I beat that level. That level's fun.
I beat that level,
It's not
but I didn't
fun.
enjoy
There's
it.
no fun in it. When you were on your
Challenge
15th
is
try,
fun.
you were like, yeah, it's still
Like
great.
World 8 of Super Mario Brothers is fun because it's hard. It was your fault when you died.
No.
It was
the
your fault
contro-
for playing the game.
The control.
Yeah, like yes, I was controlling the character. That doesn't mean that it's my
But
fault.
the control is so precise. It is your fault.
Sometimes, but then you have that strip of invisibility in the middle.
It rarely killed me though. It would annoy me, but it would that would rarely.
If it
kill
kills
me.
you once, that's bad. It's like there's a flaw in this game that's causing me inconvenience.
I just played through New Super Mario Brothers a couple
It
months
gets
ago.
really hard.
But it wasn't that hard though.
gets
I'd say
really
this was harder.
Oh yeah, this is definitely hard.
And just on more random stages, like some stages it'd be like
I think New Super Mario Brothers was actually easier unless you were going for like 100% completion. If you go for all the coins, it's a hell hard game. But
I did that
Yoshi's
pretty
Island, just getting through the stages is really, really
Yeah,
tough.
World 5 is really hard.
I have nightmares about that. It's been a week since I played it.
I mean, I would totally buy this game. I'd totally play it again. I'd recommend it to anybody who likes Yoshi's
No,
Island.
it's not a bad game. Like, underneath, the kernel of the game is Yoshi's Island, which means it's built on the foundation of a brilliant game. But sometimes I kind of feel like it's, like ricing out a Ferrari. Like, you have something that's beautiful and perfect, so why do you need to add these weird little gimmicks to it that don't actually improve it and kind of make it worse?
I think it is a Nintendo quality game. It has some like, annoying, like little niggling things that like get under your skin, like the space. But it's a beautiful game, fun to play, great control, creative levels.
Okay,
Control
but
is
is it
perfect. Control
is it
is
on the
spot
same
on.
pedestal as Yoshi's Island 1? Is it as
No,
good as
Yoshi's Island 1 is like a 9.5 or a 10.
Okay.
And this is not that, but
Okay,
it's
so
still.
it's not like the instant classic
No,
that those
no,
games
but it is
have.
a very solid platformer. I think it's besides New Super Mario Brothers, the best platformer on DS.
If I hadn't actually played the game myself, you would have just sold me right there.
I know
But having
you
played it-
like Princess Peach better, which is like baffling to me.
I just think it's more creative. I think it's way too easy, but on the other hand, that was, designed for little kids. So taken within that context, yeah, I think Princess Peach is a better game for its target audience. It does more interesting and creative things with a license than Yoshi's Island DS, which really is pretty much like they strapped a second screen on Yoshi's Island, but it's still kind of the same thing
like Nintendo fans are gonna have a good time with this.
for the most part. Until they get to World
Until they get
5.
to World 5, then they're gonna cry. And
Yeah.
cuss. Yeah.
Actually, come to think of it,
He's kind of a bitch anyway.
you were a dick the whole time we were playing Oddball. Like everyone else
I
was
thought
trying
you
to
were
kill the
gonna say
guy
that.
with the ball.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say
and
that,
you
like-
were just like gunning any single
fuck
person
yeah.
that walked in front of you.
Oddball is a game called Team Slayer variant.
Yeah.
It's called kill everyone as they run after the guy with the
But
ball.
you weren't gonna win Oddball playing.
I
that
won
way.
kills.
See, that's
Who cares?
why he
It's
gave
like-
up because he wasn't gonna win.
That's the
so that's
only
why-
people who do that is they've given up. They can't
Right.
play it
Don't
right.
you see the
they don't know how to
humor
play
and
it.
just
Oddball
killing
became
killing
kill the
sheep
man
as
with
they
the
run
ball
after?
or Luke. Like it became like anybody else they ran past me, cool, you got free pass. Luke was like way over here in the corner of my eye. Ball guy, no, okay, Luke. Like I'm getting Luke.
Sometimes you did. A couple times.
Marcus,
Control, this is Delta. No
what do you think?
Alpha
What do I think?
dead.
It could be Alpha, or it could be the Locust setting a trap. There's only one way to know for sure.
Of Sovereigns.
Our next target is House of Sovereigns. Straight ahead. Move.
We spent the past 2 days playing Gears of War.
A lot of Gears of War.
Lots.
Like, I
Like,
think
it went from no Gears of War to like as much Gears of War as you want.
I don't think I've seen the light since we got like out into the room because I've basically been playing sucked into that game for all day yesterday and then all day this morning. It's been pretty good.
Played single player, which I would say early impressions are pretty darn good. Like
any fears we had of the levels being the same, all looking the same and being boring are kind of have been alleviated now, I feel like.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the big concerns was like the color palette, and if it's all just going to be sort of like a rusted, burnt out, destroyed post-apocalyptic world, and it's it's not the case.
No,
there's a ton of stuff.
There's a couple levels that, they haven't really shown much of that. I don't even want to spoil them because they're really worth, first time when you play the game, you're going to see them, you're going to be like, oh, that's pretty damn cool. So it's very different from what you've seen in a lot of screenshots and, from footage and stuff, and so it looks really awesome. The graphics, people are like, oh, graphics don't make games, but man, it sure makes this one pretty damn cool.
Throwing frag! Nice throw!
It's an action game, okay? And you rarely go around the environments and kind of look around when you're playing an action game. I totally have caught myself just kind of going around areas that normally you wouldn't hang out in.
Well, the game lets you have time to do that too.
Yeah.
Though. There are these great sort of open theaters of war, and you'll clear this theater, and you'll have all this time. Then after that, it's not necessarily rushing from encounter to encounter to encounter. There's a lot of downtime throughout the game, and there's a lot of pacing. Like we talked about yesterday, the biggest concern, and this extends to multiplayer too, is really how much fun can stop and pop be? How long can you stop and pop?
Is it stop and pop or stop and flop?
Exactly.
Which one is it? I mean,
it's stop and pop.
Stop and pop, yeah. And I think it has to do with the environments. I think the way they're designed, I almost call it they're every area is like a chessboard, and you have your crew and then you have the enemy, whether it's multiplayer or not, and you're just kind of strategizing it.
Even though the A button controls all of your movements, it's complex because there are a lot of different ways to use it. You can hold down A to do the roadie run. Once you get into cover, if you press left, you'll either roll off to the left if there's nothing there, or do a SWAT turn over to another piece of cover. So the controls, once you get them down, they give you a ton of options that you can use in the middle of combat. And even though it's kind of a little janky when you get up, when two characters kind of are right up close next to each other, usually if you pull out a shotgun, you can, clean up any of the messes.
The shooting and the cover system and all, it functions really well. And like I said in a preview, it does take some getting used to. It took probably a good hour of playing the game just constantly to get used to at this distance I'm gonna stick to cover. And I was talking, and Cliffy said today, if you roll into cover and you don't stick, if you hold A down, it'll redetect and it'll just stick you.
Yeah.
So if you so you don't keep
it's
rolling
learning
into
those nuances.
something.
That's what makes a good game a great game. Is that yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but once you get it right, and you keep getting better and better at it, and that's by by the time the end of the game rolls around, you feel like that character.
Be a problem that also helps in the up-close encounters is that I found while playing multiplayer that pretty much all of the up-close encounters, whether you like it or not, unless there's some sweet shotgun move that some guy pulls off, end with the chainsaw. So it really does pay to have that one weapon that has the chainsaw on it out, because if you're either going for the chainsaw or the guy you're running up against is going to pull it out on you and try to use it. The nice thing that you slowly figure out is hey, if I shoot that guy before he comes up to me, he can't use his chainsaw. There's you hold down a button to rev it up, and you can stop someone from using it by shooting them, and then they're basically unable to use it for the next 3 or 4 seconds.
I think one thing we keep forgetting to talk about is active reload. Just reloading your weapon. It sounds I can't believe I'm making a big deal out of basically reloading your weapon, but it's kind of this mini game where if you you hit it at that sweet spot, kind of gives you extra power in those next couple shots.
And a faster reload.
A faster reload, and it's weird. I never thought they could make reloading your weapon fun, and I seriously have sat there and shot a bunch of rounds and then tried to time it back, just see how many times I get it in a row. And
the thing is, I thought that active reload was going to be really sort of like a janky.
Yeah,
Like, I didn't really
whatever.
care. And after seeing it at work in single player and seeing it at work in multiplayer, it's something where if someone's really good at it, they are going to be able to turn the tide in all kinds of situations, in both single and multi.
Yeah.
And that's pretty awesome to be able to like hit your active reload and just mow down like a dude in a half or something like that.
Take those.
I started to get to the point after I played for a good long while where I had the timing down and I could do it without looking at the little bar. And at that point, it felt really good when I was just like clack, clack. And I knew that I was going to get the active reload. And tapping the buttons, there's like a good rhythm to the action. And I think that's why the combat feels so fun and why, though it's not, like, if the whole game was stop and pop, it might still be fun all the way through.
Once you get into that rhythm, your character will start to look like it looks when like Cliff's playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your character starts to look really cool. He's like moving through cover the right way. He's blind firing the right way. Everything's sort of coming together in your character, and you're creating the cinematic experience of the roadie run, which is totally just it's just for like shits and giggles and tricks, but like once all that comes together, like you are actually sort of playing this very cinematic, you're playing a role in this very cinematic experience by the way that you're navigating through the space, once you get it right.
Shit!
And with multiplayer, that's what we've seen all afternoon, is like, as you've seen these, like our group of like, it's all Ziff guys all playing on the same team all afternoon, and there's a lot of depth actually to 4-on-4, and we were saying, I don't think you need more than 4 people.
No, I called it like the thinking man shooter, but like not as much as like a Ghost Recon where you really have to be like every move counts. It's kind of like that middle ground between like Halo and Ghost Recon. I didn't feel repetitive to me. Like, it just, like, that's one thing I was concerned about going to single player after playing some demos. Like, is that stop and pop gonna be, stop and plop? And it never felt like repetitive. I think it had a lot to do with the environments. And
the fact that the basic gameplay that like the Halo guy says, the 30 seconds of gameplay, that you have to get right are right in this game. And because that works, like the rest of the game is pretty fun. And I think, I think it's far and away, even though we haven't really finished it all yet, we haven't put enough time to like call it a review. I would say easily it's the most polished game that Epic has ever put out. And I hope that it does well for them, I guess, because it's kind of good.
It's kind of good.
It's kind of good.
It's kind of good.
It's a good game tape. You might want to solve it.
Now I'm pissed! Incoming smoke!
Chainsaw that dude, man.
Pistol was out.
So what's up? Playing Gears.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You got a build in.
Yeah, we got a bunch of builds this week.
Yeah, I had to leave the event like
you
after a
bailed
couple
out.
hours. Yeah, I got to go up to Seattle to play Zelda.
Twilight Princess found its dawn in your heart.
Indeed, it was beautiful. The Wii controls and everything. I know you're skeptical. I was skeptical.
Playing is believing, Mark.
So essentially, you're moving around like this, easy peasy. Centering the camera with the Z trigger right there. This is also, of course, focusing. Z targeting. So if I had an actual enemy like this fake pumpkin here, you're gonna pivot around it. C button goes into first-person mode, and then all your swings are just right here. And again, it's not one-to-one. Typically, you're gonna do, if you're just not targeting and you swing, it's going to do a horizontal slice combo that ends up doing something bigger at the end. Then if you're targeting and you do it, you're going to typically do vertical slices. And if you wanted to jab, you actually are going to target and press forwards and then swing. Stab, 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 stab. Your spin attack is on your nunchuck, so go like that and then wait for it to reset. And then you can do it again. You can also do it like a spinning your arm around, whatever feels comfortable. You're going to be more active with this hand because you're not only going to be doing sword slices, but you're also going to be aiming at the screen. So when I decide it's time to bring up my slingshot here, then all of a sudden I'm going to have to point. But then the moment I'm not, this thing's right back down to my side and I'm chilling. I typically play like this. I don't know why. I have my hands up on an armrest and I move around and I Z target and then I savage this guy right here and stab whatever. But I mean, honestly, just going around the room today, watching people play different ways, you really just do whatever you want. There's that much freedom. You can pretty much do whatever feels comfortable for you. Not only is it already, as you guys probably have noticed, pretty precise just right off the bat, but if you feel at any point in your own setup, depending on the size of your TV or your living room setup, that you're not shooting exactly where you're pointing at, there are a number of sensitivity options that you can adjust right off the bat in the options menu that optimizes it basically so that the Wii's not automatically going to assume that you have a 65-inch television in your house. So if you do, you're going to take a couple steps to make sure that it really feels natural too. I'm not pointing at the sensor bar, I'm pointing at my TV.
There's a lot of buttons on this controller and there's a lot of different functions. Do you feel like that maybe is kind of running counter to the super intuitive positioning that Nintendo's going for?
Well, not necessarily, because part of Nintendo's strategy the whole time has been obviously, we want market expansion games like we've done on the DS with Nintendogs and Brain Age, and that sort of thing. But at the same time, we still put out, a game like New Super Mario Brothers, which is really classic old school style gaming that doesn't really take advantage of the touchscreen, or even to a certain extent stuff like Star Fox. It's a lot more involved in terms of what you're doing with the controls. So not everything on the DS is totally touch generations, and I think we can expect the same thing with the Wii, where with Zelda obviously is a game that's geared towards the hardcore. Obviously we want everybody who played Ocarina of Time to get out and play this game, because if you like that game, you're going to be blown away by this one.
So, did you actually get to do anything beyond the first village? Did you get to run around? Because the world's supposed to be huge.
No, it's massive. We got to play 5 or 6 hours, but the feeling of scratching the surface, and there was so many side things.
My favorite part of that first section is the area where you first transform into a wolf. You kind of get jerked unnaturally into the twilight that's fallen over Hyrule, and you make your way all the way up into Hyrule Castle. That first meeting with Zelda, where she sort of describes the fall of Hyrule, and how she basically had to voluntarily abdicate the throne to whoever this king of the twilight is. It really sets up a number of different payoffs down the road that you'll get into. I think, as I told you earlier, and as you're probably finding out for yourself, it's a really plot-driven game, and really, really long, really involved, and with a number of different sort of emotional payoffs down the road. And that one, I think, is the best one of all. Zelda's a really tragic figure in this game.
There's a little bit slightly more subtle element to the beginning of this game that I find really appealing, which is the fact that one of the items you get at the beginning, number one, you get a lot more items at the beginning of this game than you do at any other Zelda game, especially prior to the first dungeon. And if you look at those, for me as a longtime Zelda fan, I really appreciate the fact that one of the first things you get is the wooden sword, which was the first thing you got in the original Legend of Zelda. And then one of the next thing kind of on the list is there's the slingshot, of course, which was essentially the first item you got in the first dungeon in Ocarina of Time. And then you also get the lantern, which was the first item you got in A Link to the Past. And for me, just kind of, I don't know, I just latch onto that, and I'm those are 3 of my favorite Zelda games of all time, and to have kind of that subtle homage at the very beginning of this game, where you're taking kind of the best element, like kind of these very early elements of some of the best games, and immediately giving them to the player. For people who are longtime Zelda fans, I think that's kind of a nice little gift for them.
Hey-ya! Hey-ya!
The game is massive. They were talking about, even compared to Ocarina of Time, like it's just such a vast, gigantic world, and you know the length of the quest, everything.
Because there's Hyrule Field is kind of there's a few different areas of Hyrule Field, and there was one that we showed off at E3 in 2005. There was the horse battle that we showed off there, and that Hyrule Field, if I recall correctly, which is just one little portion of the game, is actually the size of Hyrule Field in Ocarina of Time. Hyrule Field itself, I would say, is probably at least 5 times that.
I mean, it's just big.
And that's just the field. I mean, beyond that, you've got all the other areas.
How many like, cause Wind Waker had 5 or something. How many dungeons?
They heard like what people. It's almost like a fuck you to everyone that complained about Wind Waker. The Nintendo guys were joking about that because everybody thought Wind Waker didn't have enough dungeons.
It's Aonuma has announced the number of dungeons, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 9, and those are 9 actual dungeons, like named dungeons.
There's a lot of not even dungeons.
Yeah, well, like you were asking kind of at the beginning of the game, where you're running through the woods initially with the wooden sword, and you go through these caves and stuff, and you're solving puzzles in there, and you're finding chests, and you were asking, is this the first dungeon? It's like, no, this is just the caves. And then you go through and you turn into the wolf, and you're running around the sewers of Hyrule Castle, and it's like, is this the first dungeon? You're like, well, no, this is just the sewers of Hyrule Castle, and then there's stuff like that all over the place.
The spaces between the dungeons are really, really lengthened, which is why I think the game is so much longer, sort of time-wise, than Ocarina was. I really wish I worked on debug on Ocarina of Time, so I don't remember what a clean playthrough of that first time would have been for somebody. Maybe you guys do, but I can't imagine it was more than 20 to 30 hour range.
Yes, yeah. 30, probably 30, 35.
This will easily double that.
The first playthrough in Japan on the testing team took 70 hours, and that's not a 100% completion either.
Right.
So to get 100%, is there something in this game that's like the equivalent of the Skulltula, or are there the Skulltulas?
One of the first things you'll see shortly after the first dungeon is you might stumble upon a golden insect in a tree. There are a number of these scattered over the overworld. Generally, there are pairs of them in the similar area, so if you are on one section of Hyrule Field and you find a male ladybug, there's probably a female ladybug around there. If you see them, then you start collecting them. They have a solid payoff. You actually meet somebody in town who collects them, and you'll get,
It's not a fucking Link on a sailboat, right? Statue of Link on a sailboat?
No statues in this game. There are very few, I think, collectibles that don't do you some good in this game.
Yeah, and there are other collectibles. There are other things that you collect in this game. Kind of if you're familiar with Ocarina, it may ring a bell from there. But yeah, they did. The other thing that they did, I think, that was really fantastic about this game is they've done a really good job in terms of pacing the action in between the dungeons, so that it's not like you feel like between every dungeon you're doing the exact same thing over and over again. It's like you may do between the first couple of dungeons, you may do some similar activities, so that by the time you're feeling like, okay, if I have to do this the rest of the game, there's no way I'm going to finish this. And then the next time around, all of a sudden, it's like, not only is it totally different stuff between the dungeons, it's actually entirely new gameplay that you haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think once it comes out and everybody else around here is playing it, you see everybody waving their arms, doing this and that. I think even your cold, dead, stone heart will grow warm. I think you'll have to play it. I don't think you'll hold out for the GameCube version.
Yeah,
We'll see, but I don't think you will. Mark my words. Mark my words, Luke Smith.
God, I hate fanboys.
Yeah, it's something else that's kind of like something from the old maps, like Colossus, that big energy lift. Now they have the man cannons, where it's like, yeah, teleporter is not quite as much fun. You can't see somebody doing it. You can't hear them really doing it from far across the map. It kind of takes you out of the experience. Now it's going to be much more these like launch pads that shoot you across the game. Not really anything new. Like they've been in Quake 3, they've been in all sorts of multiplayer games. But like the level that used that, what was the name of that? Valhalla, yeah, which was a huge level.
Awesome level.
It was great how it worked out too, because I mean it makes, right now it's maybe a placeholder sound, but it makes that same sound the energy lift does, and that wah, 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 wah. And so you hear it, and like all of a sudden everybody's looking up, because it's like pull, basically. You're just like looking up in the sky, so either your friend's gonna be coming in to help you, or like the enemy is gonna be like, it's like sharpshooting time, you know.
You could actually launch stuff that had weight to it too, like
Right.
you could like throw the Warthog off of it, you could ride the Warthog off of it.
But that was kind of pointless. It only goes like 10 feet. Like it's more trouble to try to drive that thing into the man cannon than it's worth. It doesn't go very far.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny. You can't really like land it. And
Well,
you can't
they
land it
said
right
they
in the middle.
like they were watching while I was messing around with it, because we were losing in CTF, and I drove the Warthog off and landed, and they were like, people can't land that. It's like, I can't.
Like, you're the chosen
I knew it.
one.
You guys were talking about Halo 3. Lying to me. What? I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
I mean everyone's talking about Halo 3.
Yeah.
Is that guy? Is he Swedish?